Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are live. Woo! Welcome, everybody, to Mom-Versations. Again, thank you for joining us this week, this day after and/or in between Election Day. Thank you for joining this conversation. Thank you for just being a part for those who are returning listeners and/or watchers and those who are new to listening to Mom-Versations. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being a part of the Mom-Versation. If this is your first time tuning in, let me tell you a little bit. That always trips me up. A little bit about what this Mom-Versation is that you're joining. Okay, Mom-Versations. First of all, my name is Aretha Scruggs. Hello, and this is you are joining the conversation, or as I like to call it, Mom-Versation. What is Mom-Versation? You say. Mom-Versation is a show where we hear real stories of incredible moms making waves in our world, from the entertainment industry, entrepreneurs, and beyond. And so today you are joining the Mom-Versation to learn how to live and thrive in motherhood and in purpose. And I have the absolute pleasure today to interview one of the beyond, one of my good friends from way back. We first met, and you'll hear a little bit of the story. We first met when we were 18 years old in freshman summer program, for those Bruins who might take a look and listen here. Long time ago. Her and her husband, actually, Teddy, we met at UCLA. So once me and my twin sister, Lena's probably watching. Once I think Lena has been keeping in contact with her on and off. So I've just been floored by this life that her and her family has lived. And so you are joining a very interesting conversation. Let me tell you about my friend Kristina Haile. So let me tell you a little about her. She is a homeschooling mother of 4 boys. She just had a baby 3 months ago. But she's a homeschooling mother of 4 boys with over 15 years of experience. She's lived on both the West and East Coast and has traveled abroad for several years while educating her children. She has a broad outlook on parenting and education. Mrs. Haile is the author of, she is an author of a book she released in 2012 called Hug Notes, 30 Simple Ways to Reconnect with Your Children. And she's an educator at Alternative Choices in Education, and she is an avid hiker. But get this, ladies and gentlemen, they have traveled to 17 countries up to date and have lived in 6 of those. So I just thought it would be interesting because, as me and my sister have talked about, even before we had kids, we were like, we're gonna raise world travelers. We're gonna, put our babies on our back and we going. And we still, my twin sister, like I said, is probably watching. She's got 4, I've got 1. And we have just been so interested to hear different moms, to see how in the world did they make it work? How do they do this? And here we're talking to one of our good friends again that we've known from so long ago, to now have 4 children, and they've been able to do this with now her 18-year-old. She got into MIT. Hey, let's celebrate that. So without further ado, I'm gonna bring Kristina Haile on. Okay, so please give a round warm of applause. And there she is. Hi, everybody. This is, like I said, Kristina Haile. Please leave a comment in the comment section. Just let us know that you're here. But welcome. This is Kristina. How you doing, Kristina?
Hey, I'm pretty good.
Like I said, we go back 18-year-olds. Well, you're from Los Angeles, yes?
I'm from Pasadena.
Oh, from Pasadena. Okay. Well, we're fresh to Los Angeles, but you fresh to Westwood. So it's been a long journey, and just again, as I said, everybody, me and my twin sister met Teddy, her husband, at UCLA also. So it's really fun to see them and their beautiful family that they have raised and created, and to hear the adventures that they've been on. So if you have any questions, if you also have interest in either being an author, homeschooling, world schooling, whatever, feel free to leave some questions in the comment and we'll get to them sometime during the interview. So let me have our first topic, or our first conversation. Tell us about you. Who are you, Kristina? How did you become a homeschooling mom? We'll get to the family, but tell me about what it was. Well, it's a whole story. Homeschooling mom, authoring. How did you get to taking your family? Where did that interest come for the world to even do any of this? So let's start from the beginning. Who are you, Kristina?
All right. There's so many questions. I'm like,
Yes.
we could spend like the entire night talking about one of those questions.
Yes.
But yeah, I am a native of Southern California, born and raised here from Pasadena. I ended up going to boarding school in Massachusetts. Then I came back, went to UCLA, got my undergrad in psychology, and then I got my master's in child and family studies. I have been homeschooling ever since my youngest was, oh my gosh, like 2. I started teaching him ever since he was able to take it in.
Wow.
We left California. We moved to Massachusetts. We are. When we're done with a spot, we get up and we go. I am a Sagittarius. That might explain some of that free-spirited get up and go.
All right, Sagittarius.
But yeah, and I don't know. I'm just like an optimistic person at heart. I love education. I love kids. And a lot of people ask me, how are you able to be with your kids all the time? I love kids. I have a big family. I have like 5 brothers, tons of nieces and nephews. I grew up surrounded by kids, and it just feels natural to stay in that element, to stay in and around education, nurturing. It's just a part of who I am. And so I feel like homeschooling came easy. It was an easy choice for me because it felt really natural. And then I am a very just curious person. I love to learn about cultures. And so traveling came really easily. Just the idea of going and living somewhere else was something that just really clicked. It really vibed with my spirit.
Wow. Now, we don't dip. Like you said, there's so many ways I can go with what you just said. But I didn't know you had a master's in education. Is that what is that what sort of led you to homeschooling, or how did that come about?
So actually my master's is in child and family studies.
Child and family studies, okay.
And no, we actually started homeschooling. So we kind of fell into homeschooling. I was pregnant. I was in my senior year at UCLA when I was pregnant with my first son. So, I graduated, belly and all.
Come on. Yes.
And then I went into doing some educational research after that. And we were still in LA at the time. And the project I was working on, we were just looking at the overrepresentation of Black and brown boys in the special education systems. And it was just so prevalent. It was just so sad for me to see. And as a mother of a brown boy, I knew at that moment, I don't want my son in the system.
Wow.
And so that was a really early on, me deciding okay, I don't want my son in the system. What are my other options?
Wow.
And, so we kind of fell into homeschooling. I did have a beautiful preschool experience. And when we moved to Massachusetts, I was looking for something to replicate that. I couldn't find it. And when it came down to it, it felt like I was going to be working outside of the home to pay for private school, to do the things that I wanted. And I just looked at my husband and we were like, you can do that. And I was like, I can do that. And that's how we started homeschooling. We just fell into it.
Wow. Wow. Well, we first have to give a shout out. You got your prophytes, Kristina, KK and Dana on here. Is that how you I don't know the lingo, but Dana and KK are saying, hey. But wow, so it was intentional, especially as you're now raising 4 brown boys, yes?
Yeah.
So beautiful. What a beautiful family. Well, now that kind of segues into it. Tell us a little bit about your family and your beautiful boys and your husband. We all know you met at UCLA, met Teddy.
Yes, we met at UCLA. And we've been together for about 20 years.
20 years.
Married for 10.
Yes.
We've been together since UCLA since 2000. and married in 2010. We went ahead and decided to wait to our 10 year to make, to get married, and then so we could keep it on the 10.
All right, all right.
And we have 4 boys, 18, almost 16, 12 and a half, and 3 months.
Wow. And they're beautiful boys, huh?
Thank you. I said they're all at home.
And they're all
yeah, he got accepted into MIT. But COVID, all the freshmen are at home, so we're all still here.
Yes. He's doing online then?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh yeah. What a completely different experience, I'm sure. Yeah. But hopefully everything will open up.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They're gonna let them go on campus beginning of February.
Oh, so they already have a date.
Yeah, he has a date. So
nice. Well, tell us a little bit about, for those who are, as KK said, I want you to homeschool my son. Talk to us a little bit about what homeschooling has meant. I know you've talked about your intentionality of keeping your boys out of the system.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Well, even for those who might be thinking about it, one, what is the main thing that you're like, okay, this is why I homeschool? And then what is your day-to-day look like? How did you get your son into MIT? I mean, there's a whole lot of questions.
So let me back with your very first question. This is why I homeschool.
Okay.
And it definitely has a lot to do with who my children are. It was really important to me to respect who they are. And a lot of it has to do with my firstborn. He was like a grown man when he was a baby. Like he was really curious about the world. He was really, thoughtful, and he was really intelligent. And he was really sure of himself.
Wow.
And that right there, I wanted to protect.
Wow.
So I decided I want to homeschool because I felt like, just in my experience in public school and in private school, oftentimes that sense of self, that confidence gets beaten out of you.
Yes.
In various ways. That curiosity, that passion for learning gets just stripped away and chipped at. And for me, it was really important to protect that, to nurture him, and to carry him in an environment until he could get into an environment where they would respect that. I knew he was 5 years old. I was like, well, you'd be perfect in a college classroom, but it's to an elementary school, and the teacher's going to tell you, wait, sit down.
Too much
now,
Yeah.
And so it was really the real the real driving force behind it was sort of to protect my children's innate personalities. And as I had other children and I saw the same things, I just wanted to, do what I could as their mother to nurture and protect what they were born with.
Wow. What is that? So how do you do that as a mother and as their main educator? What does that look like?
That looks like a lot of reflection. Over the years, I take the summers. My job as a home educator is really similar to all the other teachers. I have a planning period. I take into consideration what I'm going to teach this year, what are, what's going to look like, what our field trips are going to look like, what topics we're going to cover. And fortunately for me, I'm able to take into consideration my children's interests.
Wow.
So that's a lot of, tailored education, seeing what they're interested in, respecting that, providing them resources around that, so that they can maintain that sense of self that they, kind of have.
Yeah. I love that. Golly, as myself raising a very, as they say, strong-willed child, but I have totally been about really protecting that strong sense of self. Like you said, she's had since she got here. So I am all about it. So I am just applauding you for that. That's pretty awesome. We have our first question on the floor. What were some of the struggles that you have and or have had even when in the starting process of becoming and being a homeschool teacher with your boys?
The biggest struggle you will have is the doubt that you feel.
Mm.
If you came from a traditional education.
Yeah.
We live in this country, in this system. It's not just this country, but other countries we've lived in, like everyone just feels like your kid should be in this school, in this system, and someone else should be teaching them.
Wow.
So you have to battle that self-doubt. That is the biggest obstacle I felt. Just understanding that I don't have to limit myself to try to recreate what's going on in school. I don't have to limit myself to the curriculum that they're doing in school. I don't have to do this comparison game.
Yeah.
Trusting that I know what it takes to succeed as a human being on this planet. Like I've
Wow.
been here, I've done it. I know what it is to, go out and try and get a college education. So if my kids choose that, I know how to prepare them for that.
Yeah.
And just trying to lean into myself, trust myself, and it's really yourself. That's the biggest
Wow.
that you're going to have is your own self-doubt.
Wow. I mean, that's one of the main questions I always ask my mom, but let's go there first. So because, I mean, even with this question, what has been the process? As I know, being a mom, that in itself, the self-doubt as a mom, raising your first child is like, what do I do? I don't even know. What has been the process for you of finding your voice? How did you do that? And then what has been the process of you maintaining that, especially not only just as a homeschooling mom, but even just as a Black woman, especially all those places you've traveled and lived?
Yeah. It has really been a process. And because I had my first son at 22, I got all the looks.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I go to the mom groups and they're, the looks like, you're too young to be here to be a stay-at-home mom,
Wow.
a Black stay-at-home young mom.
Wow.
That, the feeling of just trying to find my space.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big process. I was really, really fortunate when my first son was born. Mocha moms was just becoming a thing.
Wow.
And it was awesome to find other moms of color who just understood and supported my struggle. And they weren't, they ranged in age. So that felt good too.
Yeah.
And then when we were in Massachusetts, it was, again, I have to find myself, find my space. But I had a little bit more confidence, and I was in my 20s, my early 20s, and just coming up to the idea and just kind of feeling who I was, feeling myself, and starting to understand that I didn't need someone else to tell me that I was a mom. I am a mom because I am a mom.
Right. Period.
Here because I belong here.
Yeah.
This is a group for moms. I'm a mom. This is a group for toddlers. I have a toddler. I don't need permission to be in this group. I don't need your acceptance to be in this group.
Yeah.
So finding out that I didn't need anybody else's permission but my own was a really important step for me.
Good.
And then speaking up about things that I wanted to see in the group. It was a slow development.
Yeah.
And I'd say by the time I had my second son at 25. Probably by the time I was 26, I was really hitting a stride. And not only was I active in my mom's groups, but I was putting on classes for other kids, other homeschoolers.
Come on.
Really, hitting my stride and feeling comfortable in myself and what I had to offer. And valuing, the way I was doing things and trying to offer that to other people. But it took a couple years to find my voice, to trust myself. And that part, that's the thing that just still keeps on happening. And I really feel like not until I just graduated my first kid in June did I really, say, okay,
Like, hey,
you
I
did
got
it,
this.
like, so that whole first time, like,
Wow.
it's scary. And every single year, what we decided to do was say, we'll do this for as long as it works for our family.
Yeah.
Every single year, it was a decision. Does this still work? Does this still work for all the kids? We were open to anything, like to sending some of them to school, to sending all of them to school, whatever was going to work for the family at the time.
Yeah.
And having that flexibility was reassuring to me, knowing that at any point, I was free to jump ship without feeling like I failed
Wow.
and if I did put them in school, I could always take them back out. Just keeping that open mind and trying to make sure that I'm not forcing a situation on them that doesn't fit.
Yeah.
That felt comfortable.
That's awesome. We've got some questions on the floor again. There are quite a few people interested in the homeschooling. Well, one, I want to ask these, and then I want to ask you, where was like the first country that you traveled to, so you can have that answer in the back of your head. But one of the questions is, how does it end up that homeschool kids seem to be way ahead of traditionally schooled kids? I mean, even in what you're describing of your boys and how you intentionally do things, that in itself sounds like something, some part of it.
I would say the most straightforward answer to that is literally class size. It's me. It was me and 3 kids.
Wow.
So you just can't match that level of attention.
Wow.
That level of tailored education, no matter if your kids are in private school, even.
Yeah.
You can't match that, right? So that, I feel like, puts homeschoolers kind of across the board on an uneven field. They have just more attention from their educators.
Wow.
And yeah, I teach my kids, and I feel like I love kids. Like I said in the beginning, I feel like all kids have so much potential. There is nothing extraordinary about my children. I love my children. They're awesome. But at the same time, do you see what I'm saying? It's like, it's a matter of being able to have these resources to like really hone in and give them those resources.
Yeah.
And a lot of homeschool kids benefit from that. And that's why it seems like, and sometimes they are, it often turns out that they might be on a different playing field.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another question.
And that might go with KK's question was, were there any documents or curriculum you had that you provided to your, that you had to provide to your school district in order to get permission to homeschool? She's heard that someone has to do that in order to homeschool children. So even when you first started, he was only 2. Did you have to provide specific documentation, or you just were like, hey, this is what we're doing?
Yeah. And also, so I know you have viewers from all over. One thing you need to know is that each state has different laws. So that's really important to understand. If you're thinking about homeschooling, first thing you want to do is see, what are the rules and regulations in my state? Where are the resources? What am I going to be responsible for doing? Right? All the way down to testing. All that information is readily available. So we started officially homeschooling in Massachusetts. And in the area where we lived, the only thing I had to do was write a letter to the superintendent in our town. And the letter just told them what my plans were, basically saying, I plan to cover the same amount of curriculum that your kindergarten teacher will cover. Wow. I plan to have a kid in school the same number of days. The kids in kindergarten are going to be in school. Here are some of the topics that we'll probably cover. And that was it. I remember writing that letter. I was nervous because I'm like, I don't want anybody coming after me for my kids. So I remember writing my first letter.
Wow.
And it was, like so many things. After you do it, you're like, oh, that's it.
Right.
That was it. And then when we came back to California and we were homeschooling, I did it with a private school affidavit, and that was so simple too. It was literally a form I filled out, submitted it, I believe in October, between October and November, and that was it. There are lots of different ways to homeschool. So if you are going the private school affidavit, then that's it. You file that form, make sure that's submitted, and you are totally free to do whatever you want. You design your own curriculum, you do whatever you want. If you want to go the charter fund route, you sign up with I'm talking about California specifically. You sign up with one of the charters, and then you'll meet once a month with like an education facilitator, and they'll say, what did you cover this month? Give me like one work sample. You turn in your one work sample, and that's it. And they provide, that route provides you funding for all of your educational and extracurricular activities. They'll give you a set amount of money to cover your educational expenses.
Who knew that? You can get some. Yes, for all you possible homeschoolers out there, you can get some money to fund your homeschooling. Wow, that's a charter school route.
That's a charter school. Yeah, in Massachusetts, we didn't have the charter school option. When we moved back here to California, that made a huge difference.
Wow.
But also, the homeschooling culture is different because in Massachusetts, because we didn't have that option, classes and everything were way cheaper. Here in California, where parents do have that option, you will find that enrichment classes, academic classes, and events, they're more expensive because people are they're expecting you to have charter school funds.
Wow.
You see a difference in pricing for activities and classes.
Wow. I mean, say you're a wealth of knowledge, man. That should be your second book, homeschooling. Well, let's go. So we're going to go on to, I want to know what led you to the first country that you actually lived in. What was that first country? What was that like to, first of all, live there? What was it like? Where were you coming from? Massachusetts there? Were you coming from another country to another country? What was the choice? Why did you go to the first country? And how was that living? How long did you stay? I got a whole bunch of questions.
The first country we went to was Spain. And that was, so we were in Massachusetts. So I have 4 kids. My memory is shot. I don't know the years. It was a long time ago. Long time ago. I can't remember the exact year. But so the first country we went to was Spain, and we came to that decision. So fortunately, let me just throw this out there. This is a partnership. I could not do not even an inch, a half of it without my husband, who is just from day one, like, what do you need? How can I support you?
Wow.
We work together. We make this happen together.
Come on, Teddy. We celebrate the partners and the daddies on this.
He is, it's not, I know it's Mom-Versations, but this wouldn't happen without my husband.
Wow.
So, so we together, we were interested in traveling. I was already homeschooling the kids, and he was like, well, if I get a job working remote, then we'll go travel. And I was like, why not? Once we left California, it was like, well, we can go anywhere.
Wow.
We're both from California. Our family's right here in California. So making that first leap and leaving our families, we were like, well, we did it once. We can do it again.
Wow.
And it was sort of like, well, what languages do we know? That's kind of how Spain got chosen.
Well, there you go.
I know some Spanish. He's like, well, I know some Spanish. And we were like, all right.
Wow.
So yeah, that's how we chose our first country. And when he got a job working remotely, then we were like, all right, we didn't have any ties. We didn't own the house that we were in. We were renting it.
Yeah.
And it just lined up. Yeah.
Wow. I don't even know what step one is. You go and find like an Airbnb, you rented a house. How do you even connect on the other side? You just said, we're going to Spain.
Yeah. So what I will say is that because of my, because I'm a homeschooling mom, and the way that I do it, I am such a thorough researcher online. I've been using, search engines for a long time. So, researching things and finding things and then reading things, and and also I'm a nerd, and that's what I love to do anyway. So,
I love it.
So yes, we did a lot of research on which city to go to. Thinking about, where we wanted to be in Spain, sort of the atmosphere, some of the things that we wanted. So we did a lot of reading of blogs and, websites and looking at pictures and all these different things. We found websites that had information about how to rent houses and things like that. Wow. So our very first, we rented a condo a couple blocks from the beach in Valencia. That's the very first place we went to. And we got that on, so this was before Airbnb. It was a thing called Rentalia, though. And that's vacation rental kind of a thing, but a long-term one, and for several different European countries. So we found a couple of our spaces on that website.
Wow. Come on, everybody. You too can homeschool your children.
And we just showed up. We had 3 kids. Yeah, it's a journey. So if you read some of my other, I used to blog about it.
Wow.
If you read some of my blogs, when we first started traveling, it was just some days were a nightmare. It was just so much stuff happened. You just had to laugh. At the end of the day, oh my God, why do I have a 3-year-old and I'm tramping around London with luggage? Why did I do this to myself? Why? Wow. But then, it was beautiful. So.
Wow. What was, do your kids, did they end up learning Spanish?
So yeah, because we ended up living all together. We ended up being in Spain twice and Costa Rica. So we were in 3 different, Spanish speaking countries. And I feel like in our experience, kids adapt. And so when they were there, they were learning Spanish. And then we always would try to find other English speakers too, other homeschoolers, other Americans, other Christians, other just people that shared some of the same interests we did. We found my kids play capoeira. Well, they were playing capoeira before, shut down and all that other good stuff.
Right.
So we would try to find the capoeira community. So we tried to find different aspects of community that we already knew about in all the different places. That's one thing that's really important. Trying to establish community. At least some form of community wherever you go. So we try to do that, at least 1 or 2 different types of community in every place we went.
Wow. So, where did you guys feel the most at home?
We love Costa Rica, and the kids, Teddy and the kids love England, and let's see, where we felt the most at home. We felt super at home in Costa Rica, and we felt really at home, I'd say, in Sevilla, and it's not that I felt not at home. So let me back up and say, I don't know that I didn't. Every place we went, we'd work it out, and so we felt comfortable there. But yeah, Costa Rica probably. I think all of us can attest to feeling comfortable and just, at home in our home.
And I know I've been to Costa Rica. I know they have a really, I don't know if it's I'll use the word large, but at least a really Afro Costa Rican population, a large African population there. Did you guys get to kind of moosh in there, or how was that?
So we lived in the northwestern part of the country, and in that area, so a lot of the Afro Costa Rican, I guess, proper terminology for it, but they live on the, the Atlantic side. But in the Guanacaste area, which is where we stayed, there were also some too. So we met some. I think I'm frozen. Okay, so we did meet some. But more so than actually meeting a lot of them is that we got mistaken for them.
I was going to say, yeah.
that literally worked in our favor.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we met a lot of foreigners who were traveling to Costa Rica who experienced, they were robbed, they had to pay bribes to police, they just had a lot of negative experiences that we didn't have. And I know it's because we are brown.
Hey.
I just, and so in Costa Rica, the color of our skin works to our advantage.
There you have it. Costa Rica, everyone. Go to Costa Rica. Where was the longest place that you guys lived?
Costa Rica and Spain, both about the same amount of time. Yeah. We stayed. So when we were in Spain, we were in 2 different places, but we were still in Spain. We stayed in Valencia, and then we moved down to Sevilla. And then in Costa Rica, we stayed in the same area, just moved to 2 different houses, but the same, yeah. So the same amount of time for both of those places.
Wow. How long were you there? How long were those?
Let's see. I'm going to count this up. All right. 8 months.
8 months.
8 to 9 months. Yeah.
Wow. So everything there. So you were just going short spaces.
So I was going to say, so what I should say is that we were pretty nomadic.
Wow.
And with 3 kids, so now that's a challenge, but we had it down to a science. Like we would get to a place, we had a routine, we get to a place, we get our internet, like Teddy would start working, the boys and I would go to the grocery store, we'd come back, we'd unpack. We had a routine for every new country we went to. So that's how we were able to visit a lot of countries.
Wow.
Because we would usually stay, about 3 months. So we usually stay about 3 months in a place.
Yeah.
We stayed longer in Costa Rica, and we kept going back to Spain.
Wow. I mean, I know from traveling myself, a lot of places you can only stay. Is it a 90-day visa? Yes. I know in Brazil. So is that what helped okay, time to go?
Yes. And that's what a lot of that was what we were working around.
Yeah.
So I don't advise it.
We don't advise it, y'all.
But we loved Spain so much. We were like, well, we're just going to stay.
Okay.
The first time. We're just going to stay. We're going to work this out. And then, so we did. And that's how we stayed there for longer than,
the 90 days.
Mm-hmm. That was the first time. But then the second time we went to Spain, we stayed for the 90 days. But then also in Costa Rica, there's a time limit you're supposed to stay, but they don't have those same kind of restrictions. So we just would hop the border, go to Nicaragua for the weekend, and then come to Costa Rica.
Wow. Now, what brought you back to California? And I want to bring it up to today's time, especially with living in the quarantine, raising now 4 boys in the world that we live in. How are you processing? How do you bring this do you bring it and introduce it into your homeschooling or your educating of your boys? What does that look like? What first brought you back to California?
The first time we came back to California, I think we had been gone for maybe 6 years or so.
Wow.
The boys had just, our kids were younger and all our family was here. So what brings us back to California, point blank, is family.
Family.
For family.
Yeah.
My mom's here. His mom's here. My brothers are here. Sister-in-law, nieces and nephews. Everyone's here except my dad in Massachusetts. So we go, back and forth to those places. We stayed in California for a little bit, and then we left and started traveling again. And then we came back to California. What brought us back to California? I forget. Oh, I remember. We sort of cut the nomadic life short when we were in Spain, in between Spain and London. Spain and England. And we're going to, we were in the northern part of Spain, and the kids just were not thrilled. They were not impressed. this is so awesome. And they were just not impressed. And both Teddy and I were like, okay, before they get, drained of all the traveling, the living. So we didn't live out of a suitcase, but we lived very minimalistically. And we didn't want to turn them off to travel by no means. They were still excited about going to new countries, meeting new people, trying new food, new culture. And when I would go to a different, we would dive in. We learned the history.
Wow.
Food. That was a huge part of my curriculum. Learning about the place that we were in. So, we did deep dives wherever we went and stayed. And so we didn't want them to be turned off by that. We didn't want them to have a negative experience. And so when they started to be like, another castle, we were like, okay, all right.
This is boring you.
Maybe it's time to, go back to the States. And it was a good time too, because the boys were getting older. It's a good time to go back and, kind of sit in California for a little bit and travel around the States and see some family and stuff like that. So that's kind of what brought us back to the States. And then we were doing a cross-country road trip because we wanted to see our country.
Yeah.
After spending so much time seeing other countries. And I love, like you said, I am an avid hiker. I love the outdoors. And one thing that our country has that, a lot of the other places we went to don't have is beautiful, just beautiful nature. So we went on a cross-country road trip, stopping at different national parks and whatnot. And my now 12-year-old, he came down with a freak illness. He had transverse myelitis. He was paralyzed completely on his right side. All of this just hit suddenly. We were in the middle of a road trip, living, on the road like that. We ended up in Madison, Wisconsin. And we ended up spending about 3 months there with him going through that, trying to figure out the whole process. They had no idea if he was going to walk again. They had no idea what his career would be like. And so as we were trying to decide what our next moves would be, once he was able to leave the hospital, we decided to come back to California, where we had tons of support because we had no idea what life would look like for us.
Yeah.
So we wanted to be around family. Thankfully, though, he is running, playing capoeira, jumping on family.
Wow.
Totally, recovered. It was amazing. But that's what brought us back to settling in California. So we've been here for about 4 years. Been here for about 4 years. Yeah.
Wow. What a life you have lived, and with these boys and partner husband Teddy. Oh my, I'm sure you have a whole book. My sister asked, where's your blog? We got to attach your blog if it's still up somewhere so we can read these adventures.
I believe it's KristinaHaile.com. I am such a Sagittarius. I'm like, I don't know. I got a book. I got a blog. I don't know. It's out there. It's there.
And let's talk about, when did you write this book? And if, for those who can see on the bottom, we have her book listed there, Hug Notes, 30 Simple Ways to Reconnect with Your Kids. When did you write the book? Where did the idea for the book even come? And how did you finish? As most people are like, I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book.
Well, it's a short one. It's a short, sweet, practical sort of a guide. So it's not like one of those long memoirs, or it's a really hands-on activity sort of guide for parents to literally do exactly what it says, reconnect with your kids. Like some of the stuff that, we just get bogged down, right? By the day-to-day, we sometimes forget to just pause and make those moments and have that joy and be silly or be loving or be supportive. Because we're just, in the moment, like this. And so I felt I started writing the book when we were in Spain, and Italy. I remember the two places writing it. And once it came to me, it was really quick. You know, I started thinking about it, started jotting down notes, and you know, it took me a couple months because, like I said, it's a short, sweet situation. But what I felt was that it was really powerful, and I was doing these things. I had started doing these things with my kids, like to sort of just uh, be intentional with each one of them. And then I thought, well, this is good information to share. So, you know, it's great, and it's a way to pause, be intentional. So it was an easy one to write. You know, it was more so like things that I was doing that I wanted to share so that other parents could do them and just have some good moments. Have some good moments with their kids throughout the craziness that they might be going through. We can have some good moments.
I love it. Speaking of good moments, how are you as we're coming to wrapping up our interview? What are one of the greatest lessons that you're learning? And what are some of the tips in this season? What are some of the greatest lessons you're learning this season? What are some tips you can give to other homeschooling moms, moms who, moms, parents, even in this season? What are some of the tips you can give with some of the lessons that you're learning right now?
I think 2020 is just really, you know, it's checking me. It's checking everybody, right? Like everybody's like, nah, pump your brakes. I had all of these. I just turned 40 at the end of 2019, so I was like, oh, it's like I'm gonna be 40. This is my year, 2020.
Yes, so, right, all of us.
One, oh, surprise, you have a baby. Right. Two, right. Oh, surprise, pandemic.
Wow.
So 2020 has been a year that has just reminded me over and over again to like relax and let go. And for me, that's really important. I like control is a big thing for me. Being able to control what's going to happen next and plan it out and be on top of it.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm learning and it's a lesson that just keeps coming back to me for my whole life is that I might not be able to control what happens to me, but I can control how I respond to it. And just exercising that, not getting overly stressed, not getting, I guess like dejected about things. I had, my son graduated from high school, like my son that I homeschooled, like this whole time, like I had these major plans and big celebration. We have huge family, like things that I wanted to do. I was having a baby and my last baby, once big baby shower, family things, and all of these things turned into something totally beautiful, totally different. Totally different from how I envisioned them. And so 2020, like I actually feel optimistic about alternatives. Like sometimes we're scared, like the things that we plan, if they don't happen, then something negative is going to happen. But my alternatives have been beautiful. I got to write the ceremony. I graduated my son. We had put him in this other program where he was going to graduate with these, other kids, and it was going to be a big formal sort of thing. But I ended up graduating him in our backyard. Teddy and I gave speeches. He gave a speech. It was so much more personal. It was beautiful. And, our baby shower was sweet. And things have just been like, they've been lovely. They've been different, but they've been lovely.
I love it. The beauty in the alternative. Yeah. Beauty in the alternative. Wonderful. What was the question? Hold on. My child just walked into the room and she threw me off. Excuse me, everyone. So we're coming to a close. Oh, I wanted to ask, you talked about your faith. How has faith been a part of this journey for you all in the process of even pregnancy all the way to now 4 baby boys? and homeschooling and being all around the world. What does that look like for you guys?
Oh, our journey. That's a stand up testify. I got a testimonial in church. Like, we have been through so many challenging things, and that is a thing that I try to be really transparent online, because we have been through the ringer, from parents passing away, siblings passing away, our children going through some really like serious illnesses, and staying together through this.
Yeah.
Still homeschooling our children through this. Still being optimistic. Like, our faith is a huge part of just keeping us together. Like, literally, God like wrapped and wound and bound us together, and it's like,
wow.
And carries us at times. I remember being in the hospital in the ICU with my son, like on the ground in tears, just praying, that my son be saved, and that he come through this, and our faith it's carried us. It can us.
Woo! Well, this will be the last one of my plan questions. What, as we're coming around on the election, and even with all of what has been going on racially now in California and in the United States, what's some of the lessons you're learning there, and some of the tips that you are being intentional about with raising your boys in this society, and even just in preparing them for the world that they'll see and meet?
So, as a mom of brown boys, I've been preparing my boys for this world since they've been born. Like, that's nothing new is happening there.
Right.
I have also been super intentional about the messages of what being Black looks like, what it is. Like, we didn't have TVs. I didn't let them, like, all of the negativity that the media feeds to them, be it entertainment or the news. When they were younger, we were super, super intentional about creating the narrative of what is a Black person? What do you expect from them? They're surrounded by uncles and aunts. They're surrounded by family members that are whole and working and positive, and a huge variety. Fortunately, like we have a big family, so they have a wide variety of examples of what Blackness is. And I didn't want someone else narrating to my children what it meant to be Black. So that, from jump, we've been really, really protective of the image of Black people in the lives of our children. So they didn't grow up, and because they're homeschooled, they didn't grow up with any negative images of Blackness.
Wow.
Intentionally.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we talk about the state of our country.
Yeah.
They might be treated. We look at things that we see on the news, and we talk about why people might behave this way. Because they're homeschooled, I have the advantage of teaching them all different sorts of aspects and viewpoints of history.
Wow.
Why things might be this way. And, I also teach a civics class right now, and I really believe in the power of voting, like, not to believe the myth that your voice doesn't count. I believe that is purposely put out there to disenfranchise us. And I make sure that, it's important that my kids understand their power, that they stand in their power, and that they not be intimidated. And so I like to highlight our victories. So all of the things, all the positive changes coming about after all the social unrest, like, we don't just, look at the protest on TV and see what's happening there. Like, I will follow it. So what happened? What laws came about because of that?
Wow.
It's more important to continue and stay in a struggle and see it through than to just show up at a protest. And those are the sorts of things that I try to teach my kids. You know, when all this stuff is going on, we decide, like, so what organization are we going to donate to? Because we're privileged. Like, I was pregnant and I had a newborn. So we went to a couple of protests, but not too many because COVID and a new baby.
Right.
But what we could do was give money, right? What we could do is share information. And so we decided, like, you know, what do we want to support? How can we be showing up for the movement, and also protecting and showing up and, you know, being here for my family, because my boys are the boys that are dying out there. So I'm not willing to put them on the front line in that sense.
Yeah.
But definitely willing to make sure we're doing something to make a difference. And I want to see the positivity, you know, like that. And like, so I do a lot. I've done a lot in the last year around just trying to get different measures to pass, just trying to, you know, change things here in LA County. And I show them that, like, you know, we go out, we canvass, we talk, we do these things, and look, like, these measures have passed. You have power.
Wow. So, that's beautiful. Woo! You intentionally show them that they have power instead of what media wants to show, that you are powerless. Exactly. You have no power. Ooh, that's powerful. That's powerful. Man, this has been an amazing interview. I know whether people are watching now, later, I know my sister and KK alone probably have 5,000 more questions to ask you. But as it comes to a close, I always like to end with even thinking in your future and in your kids' future. If you met one of your boys later in life, say they just turned 30 or 40 years old, what would you want them to know about you, Kristina, and your journey?
Obviously, I want them to know, like, everything I did for them is because I love them. The push, the nagging, all that good stuff, you know, all the stuff that moms want our kids to understand. Yeah. But also, because they're homeschooled, like, and I had to make this decision early on, like, you get to see all of me. Like, when I'm tired and I'm done, like, I literally, it's 10:30, I'm done. Like, I have to be real with my kids in a different way that maybe some other parents don't, because they get, you know, they get this separate time. So I have been intentionally, like, kind of raw at certain times. So I think my boys really do know me, and they know, you know, my journey. So I don't think that I'd have to explain very much to them. The thing that I want them to know is that it is just that. It's a journey. I'm always changing. I'm always growing. I'm always trying something new. And I want that for them too. Like, there's no finish, you know, it's just a process.
Woo. All right. And we are going to close, unless there's any other questions out there. We're going to close. I like to close with this question, in thinking about our former First Lady, Michelle Obama, and reading her autobiography and seeing that documentary. I always love to ask my interviewees, well, who are you becoming, Kristina? Haile. I've been saying your name wrong all this time. Sorry.
It's all good. I saw this question and I thought about it. Like, I just am becoming myself. I mean, you know, I'm always, I have like a vision of who I want to be when I'm really old. And I've called it already. I'm going to be really old. I'm going to be real old.
Me too. I'm with you.
I'm going to be real old. So I think I think about her a lot, so I can move towards that. And it is just more, and I keep it open, because that's the most important thing I think I've learned in my life is I have no idea what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I love doing so many things. I could be doing anything. Who knows? But what I know that she is confident, and she's light. And I think I'm not becoming something different. I think the biggest thing is just, staying who I am and then kind of bringing that person into the different situations. I'm a super light and bubbly and laughing and optimistic person. And the woman that I see, the old lady with silver hair, I want silver hair.
Yes, with the braid down the back.
Good Lord, right? So the old lady with the silver hair, like she is just happy and she is smiling and she's dancing and I think like that's just me still. And I just want to carry myself into the future and
that's beautiful. And meet that old woman on the other side.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Kristina, we have KK says we love you both. Elena says inspiring conversation. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Kristina, for sharing your amazing story. I'm sure we could go even further with so many experiences you've had. But I'm inspired by your story and inspired by really, I think the word for this interview is your intentionality with your family, with your kids, with your education, with your own education, within even your own life story is really powerful. So I just thank you. Oh, I didn't even let me do one more question. Give me what have been your how are you taking care of yourself? What does self-care look like for you in that there is no real dividing line between momming, and I'll just throw that question on there for the people who are listening. How do you take care of yourself as a homeschooling mom and even a traveling mom and all of the above?
So at first, when they were little, I didn't even know, like self-care was like, what? Am I injured? What? So that was like a later development, right? Like I was just in the trenches when the babies were babies, when the big ones were babies. And that's something that I had to learn to incorporate. And singing and dancing, I feel like singing and dancing have carried our people. Like you see out like singing and dancing. Like when my toddlers would stress me out, I had songs that just I knew what I was singing and they didn't and they thought it was fun, but I was singing.
Yes.
And dancing and just like lightening the situation. So a lot of times, especially when I had the 3 little ones, when my 3 big ones were little, a lot of that was just like you just gotta find some joy. Be silly in this moment. Because if not, you're gonna go crazy. And then later on, when we were in Massachusetts, I learned that I love being outside. I love being in nature. And that is where I am. Which is interesting because I'm from Pasadena. Like I didn't grow up hiking. I didn't grow up camping. I didn't grow, we went occasionally. The mountains are right here and I hardly ever went as a kid. Like I didn't do that. So it took me years and moving to a different state to realize like, oh, you are a crunchy nature girl. Like I am, and I love it. And that am I, and I guess I would say maybe the last decade or so is something that I've really incorporated and made sure that I do because it just feels so good. I find myself, and I be with myself, my kid. We all go out there and we hike, we walk, talk, spend time, ask questions, like look at stuff. It's just, I don't know. That's my self-care now. I've realized that's what I need.
Yes, nature, hiking, and singing and dancing. Come on. Find what's your to-do, audience. What is your to-do? What do you love to do? Find it and do it.
Yeah. Dancing.
So and a sing and a dance.
I like that.
Yes. Did you used to do Cuban dance?
I did West African dance. I did Afro-Cuban dance. Dancing has been a huge part forever. Like when I was younger, I did drill team, I did dance team. In high school, I did dance at UCLA, and I've just tried to keep it up because it's
Yes. Yes. All right. That was my last question. I'm going to let you go. But thank you again, first to the audience for tuning in, all those UCLA Bruins who are saying howdy, who will say howdy now and later. And thank you, Kristina, for your story. Please check out her book, Hug Notes, on Amazon. I see it's got some good reviews there. 30 Simple Ways to Reconnect with Your Kids. It's a practical, as she says, a practical way to reconnect with your kids, especially during this time, which is hard. So much stuff going on. Support and check out what Kristina has written in her Hug Notes. And thank you again, Kristina, for your story. It's been such a joy to hear the adventure, and I'm gonna have to rewatch this as I'm figuring out where to take my daughter and go. And Lena says she will probably be contacting you about world schooling, so and probably K too. So if you have people contacting you, well, let me say that because you are on social media. Is it K Marie?
I believe it's here we go. I'm not even ready for this answer. Like K Marie Haile 5.
Yes, I remember a 5.
Put me on that, maybe. That's probably me.
I think that's it. It sounds familiar. I tagged you, so I think
that sounds like me.
That sounds so. K Marie, we believe it's K Marie Haile 5.
Yes. And if not, K Marie Haile 5 is going to get some new followers. So hey.
Right. So look up Kristina Haile, and then it's just Kristina Haile on Facebook. Yes.
That's easy. Okay. Yeah, that's
there you go. So that way you can follow her and follow her journey. And where can they find your blog if they want to?
That's KristinaHaile.com.
Okay. Great. So KristinaHaile.com. She knows that one. You can look up her blog, and you blogged the whole time.
So yeah, but that was when we were traveling. I was blogging. So I haven't blogged since we became stationary. But yes, if you want to see some of our, you want to read about some of our experiences in other countries, and just some mom moments, go ahead and check that out.
Wow. There you go. Check out her blog. I know I'm going to tune in. KristinaHaile.com to see her adventures when she was nomadic. But now she's stationary in California. That works too. Oh, my sister asked a question. Where's an affordable country to fly with a family of 6?
Lovely.
Do you have one right off the top of your head?
Like the interesting thing is it changes because flights change all the time.
Yes, daily. Right.
Yeah. So I'm like, and that was one of the things that sort of like would determine which country next. Where can we get a cheap flight to?
Wow.
And, we'd go where we can get a cheap flight and find a cheap place to stay. So just be on the lookout, like positioning yourself to be flexible, you will get the most for your money. Positioning yourself to be flexible, right?
Yeah.
So that said, we found like a couple cheap flights to London. So we would fly to London first, and then from London, we'd hop over to wherever else we were going.
There we go. Flexibility, Lane. Flexibility. Keep a lookout on all those. There's so many sites now. So many sites to take a look at and wait to see where the deals are. Oh, there's one. You have to sort of be ready to buy it. So I get it. Well, thank you again. We're going to let you go. I'm going on into an hour, but thank you again for your time, Kristina. This has been so amazing to hear your adventure. And from one free spirit to another, I'm inspired. I am inspired.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Look for Kristina on her website. Support her with her book and follow her. See her blog and follow her on her Instagram and Facebook. And we'll see you guys next week with another mom. See you guys.
Bye.